Hey everybody, I want to talk to you about building wonderful, lovely ships. Like for instance this thing right here. This is the Revell model of the Cutty Sark. It's 3 feet long and it's beautiful. Now, wouldn't you like to build a beautiful model like this yourself? Well, I'm going to give you tips how to do so. Okay, so here we go. Here we have the Cutty Sark, Revell Cutty Sark. I'm going to give you tips. People buy the Cutty Sark, they open the box, and they go, oh no, I can't do it. But let me tell you something. You can do it. It takes 3 things. It takes patience, tools, and experience. The more you build them, the better you get. If you do models, of course, the more you do models, the better it gets. It helps to have the right tools. And I am going to walk you through tips of how to build a good Cutty Sark. And hopefully, the mistakes I made, you will not make. So first of all, let's talk about the Cutty Sark, Revell Cutty Sark. And I just want to start off on the deck. I got the instructions here. And here we have the deck. Now I want to tell you something. You don't always obey the instructions. The deck, go Google it. I'm going to tell you to Google the Cutty Sark several times because that's when you find out what colors are and you'll have a better idea of how to do everything. So here we go. Let's go ahead and dive into it. And we have the deck here. The instructions say paint the deck black and then you paint it the tan color, the deck color, and then you sand it off and then the black, the wood grain will show up. Well, no, don't do that. I have tried it and tried it. I've bought Cutty Sarks off the internet through eBay. People have tried it. They have no success. What you do is you buy khaki paint and you spray the deck with khaki paint. And I say khaki because again, you go online, you'll find out the color of the deck. And best I can tell, the closest color to a Cutty Sark deck is khaki. Okay? Then you take ordinary newspaper. You can take paper out of a catalog or something, and you rub on that wood grain on the deck. And the ink off the newspaper will get on the wood grain on the deck, and it looks beautiful. Okay, so that's what you do. Now let's step further. What about the copper sheathing? It needs to be copper. So here we have one. Here's a Cutty Sark. And sometimes Revell, it's different times in history, Revell sometimes don't have the bottom pre-copper. You have to paint it yourself. Okay, this one has a green tint on it, and Revell did that on purpose. But most of the time it's straight copper. You'll have to get copper paint and paint the rudder yourself. Okay, then I always try to get rid. If these tabs show up on your finished model, they look yucky. So break these tabs off. You might have to do copper touch-up paint along the bottom of the keel here. Okay. So here you have your copper. And I want to tell you something. I like models because they are a piece of history you hold in your hand. And I don't like toys. I'm not making toys. I'm making models. And I want my models to look cool. Okay. So I take the model, and if it's straight copper, it kind of has that toy look to it. So I want to weather it. We call it weathering. And you go online again, and you look at the Cutty Sark. Well, they have these Cutty Sark with these gold plates. That is not real Cutty Sark. The sheathing, the copper plating, it is not gold. And this country of England decided they were going to fancy up the Cutty Sark and the plating's gold. It's not gold. If you go back further enough and you look at enough pictures of Google, of the Cutty Sark, whatever, you will finally find this hull is green. Okay, I made a model ship. I put it in a museum, and the big shot in the museum said, I've been to the Cutty Sark, but tell me something. The hull, when we looked at the Cutty Sark, it was green. And yes, this copper turns green. Okay, so if you want the real thing, Revell tells you to get tissue paper, turpentine, mix it with white and black and blah, blah, blah. And you dab it on tissue and you go down. You can do that. I have no luck doing that myself. Okay, so what would I suggest? The best way to make your copper look real and still people can see the copper in it, I want copper to be translucent. I want you to see the green and the copper same time. What you do is you take white latex paint and you take acrylic paint and you mix green into the latex paint. Latex paint lets you paint a wall with. Ceiling paint. Try to get a sample. It's just white. And you mix some of this green acrylic paint in it, and they mix really nice. And then you paint the hull, and then you wipe it off with blue jeans. Not porous. You don't want a towel porous, because you'll get all the paint out of the little cracks and crevices. So you wipe it down, you paint it, and then you wipe it off. And you want this green to be embedded in all the little seams here in your copper sheathing. Okay, and it looks real cool. If you do it right, you put some time into it, it looks beautiful because you have your green and you have your copper both. It looks great. And if you want the true weathered look, metallic green, you just paint it metallic green and then dirty it up with some black. Take paint thinner, testers, flat black, thin it down real good, put it on with a paintbrush, and it'll go into the cracks. And it's more realistic, but it looks so cool if you can have the copper and the green show at the same time. Now, if you look at this model here, it's got a beautiful white stripe here. Okay, how do you do that? By the way, I bought this on eBay. Look at that wiggled line there. Someone already started on this, and that line looks terrible. Okay, so what do you do about it? You buy pinstripe that goes on automobiles. You go to AutoZone. You go to O'Reilly's. You go to a hobby shop that sells radio-controlled airplanes. And a lot of times there's white pinstripes that they will sell you. And you take that white pinstripe and you put it along this edge here, and it looks beautiful. And it'll be a little shiny. You take sand, after you put it on, you take some sandpaper and you sand it and they'll dull it. I don't like shiny on these model ships. It doesn't look as real. Okay, I want real. Again, you go shiny, it'll start looking like a toy. And that's my opinion. And of course, you do what you want. Now, there's a place here where you put the watermarks right here. I don't have the watermarks on this one because I bought this one on eBay as well, and all the decals were destroyed. So I didn't have watermarks, so I left the watermarks off, and you see a nice, beautiful stripe here. This one has the watermarks, okay? And see this black gap here on that watermark. Okay, so here we have this black gap here. What you do is you take testers, wonderful testers, semi-black, and you paint over your black stripe. Your white stripe. And then you put the decals on, and it looks beautiful. Okay, I always paint the very tip here of the rudder That's paint. Okay. And then, of course, there's the front part at the nose. And you put the watermark numbers there as well. Now, I want to talk about this front here. Again, you go online. And this very front piece is these boards that stick out. They're trim. It's gold in some places, and sometimes you look at a picture and it's white. So just pick the color you want. According to these instructions, you want that white, okay? But you can paint just this front part here gold, and then the decals will go in there. Now I want to tell you something. In the back, you can dress that up, make it better, get some body putty, and really make that look good in the back. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing that matches Revell black better than Tester's semi-gloss black. So you put the body putty here and everything else, the model putty, and you sand it and you shape it with a file and everything. And the semi-black, Tester semi-black, will really look good on there. By the way, decals adhere to paint better than plastic. I don't know why, but you're welcome to paint a strip here so that the decal, the entire decal on the back here, really, the invisible film really disappears because you put it on black paint instead of plastic. The same thing here. I would actually paint that in here in the nose so the decal looks good. I'll tell you this. There's a little bump ridge here that the decals tell you to paint white. And if you want your bump ridges really, really looking good, what you do is you tape it off. You can buy special tape for taping tight places at a hobby shop. And you tape it off. No matter what, there's enough ridges and everything on this model. When you spray paint it, the paint will creep behind the tape and it'll look terrible. You'll have little strings coming down. Now, how do you stop that? I'll tell you how. You tape it off and you stand back about 4 feet and you dust the spray paint on, and you take your time and you take patience. You just dust it a little bit. You wait an hour, you dust it on, you're 4 feet back. Basically, you probably need a garage, and you need a wide open garage to get the cars out of the garage, because that white overspray is going to go everywhere in the garage. And so it's got to be a thing where you don't care that you get some overspray in the garage. And the overspray will turn into dust and blah, blah, blah. But I'm just telling you, that's how you get wonderful, crisp white lines on here. Now, I always paint this top rail. I always paint it rust, flat rust. Again, Testers, wonderful Testers. Okay, so they've got these little bumps here. I trim them off with an X-Acto knife. These little bitty bumps here. I'll tell you this. There's a little ridge here on the nose here, and you trim that off so it's nice and flat. You don't have a little wart there. The deck will go here. You want that deck to fit in here better. Okay? So, I'm going to warn you, when you put the deck on, no matter what, you'll have a gap here, and you'll have to, if you want to, you'll have a little gap, and you can ignore it, or you can, again, use body putty or something, the model putty. Do that. You paint the inside of this white. Okay, and I'm going to give you some advice here. First 2 Cutty Sarks I built, I put the fife rail. You say, what's the fife rail? The fife rail is where you tie the strings down here. Okay? I glued the fife rail on, I tied strings down, and I tied one string pretty tight, and pulled that fife rail right off. And then you have to fight that fife rail, get it glued back. And here's what you do with the fife rail. You either use super glue or you use mono glue. Again, this is my mono glue. Again, Testers, they make a wonderful mono glue. I don't use anything else. It's either that or I use super glue. Here's super glue. Now here's the deal. Paint does not glue to paint with this. You have one surface painted. This glue doesn't work as well with it. Glue melts the plastic and it bonds the plastic together. And if you have one surface with paint on it, it won't do the melting and it won't adhere as good as you need it to, as you want it to. So you paint this white, you put your fife rail, and you'll end up having the deck on and halfway assembled. You put your fife rail in there, and it'll pull up. So you use super glue. Super glue will glue anything to anything. So I recommend super glue. Now I'm going to tell you something about super glue. It is wonderful stuff. But there's danger with super glue. And I know I experienced it. The fumes will attack you. The fumes love moisture. And it'll attack your eyeballs. And it will attack your nostrils. And you'll know it's attacking your eyeballs. It won't be your imagination. Mono Railroader magazine years ago said, the guy said, I wear goggles and a face mask when I use super glue. I don't recommend that. What you do is you take a fan and you just have it close to you. You turn it on and it'll suck the fumes away. So I can usually pretty well work on it all I want to, as long as I have a decent fan pretty close to me. But I tell you what, when you smell that stuff, or you feel your eyes are detecting it, your eyes suddenly get irritated, back away. But if you ever glue your fingers together, the best thing is acetone. Now always remember, super glue is attracted to moisture. If you have water, it's attracted to moisture. It just suddenly, if you have a glass of water next to it, it'll suddenly attack your hand, even though your hand's not in water. I mean, it just really activates it. So it's wonderful, but don't let that super glue attack you. Okay, so here's my notes, and we're going to talk about the fife rail again. And you want that fife rail to be really strong. So what you do is you take a pin vise, this thing right here, it's got a little tiny drill bit, and you drill a hole in that fife rail. You have the fife rail already installed. You drill a hole at the two ends and one in the middle of that fife rail. And then you take a pin the same size as this drill bit. I've taken paper clips and cut them. I put super glue on it and I just shove it down the hole until it's flush. Anyway, you need to reinforce that fife rail. That fife rail, not only does it hold the fife rail in place, and the strings come down, they tie that fife rail, and they're going to be pulling up, but these lanyards here, these are called lanyards. These little things look like little pulleys. You're going to be gluing, the lanyards are going to be pulling up as well for your rat lines. So here you go. Here's the lanyards. Okay, and they glue to your fife rail. Now I recommend you you paint the fife rail a dark tan color, a chocolate brown color, and the cabin chocolate brown. Which, by the way, this is all rust, flat rust Testers. You can go for a lighter color Testors has they call it tan. One's called wood tan. You can pick either one of those colors, and they look great. But I'm going to tell you something. Paint every inch of your model if you want a good looking model, except the black. Now you might want to do touch-up paint on the black here and there with a semi-gloss, but you don't paint the black. The yard arms here are black, and the side here is black. The lanyards are black. Your part of your mast is white. Paint it white. Testors flat white. Because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, this white mast is going to turn ivory. It's going to turn ivory. You don't want it to turn ivory. And it looks so much better white. And it'll be 50 years old. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. You paint it flat white with Testors flat white, they will stay white forever, and it will look good. Now I want to talk about this cabin. The top. Revell will tell you to mix blue with gray and paint the top. Don't do that. Again, the internet shows pictures of the top. If you look long enough, you'll find it. And it's a very light gray. It is not a blue gray. It's a very light gray. Now, once you paint the tops, do the same thing with the newspaper. Rub it on that grain, that wood grain, and it looks beautiful. You'll see the wood grain. It'll be light gray. Hopefully you see the light gray here. Hopefully the camera's that good. And I want to say as well, don't forget to leave this white trim on the top of the cabin. Paint that white trim. Revell does not tell you to do that, but if you go, again, online, see real pictures, you will see that white trim there. So do that. So your 3 deck tops are light gray, and then the cargo hatches are light gray as well. By the way, I always just glue the cargo hatch on because no one needs to see inside the cargo hatch. No one cares. And you'll lose the cargo hatch if you don't glue them on. That's experience again. Okay. Now, notice, again, a chocolate brown. Again, I'd use rust again. But a dark brown here. And this section here is white. Okay. Your arms are black. And so hopefully those are tips, and you will have a beautiful Cutty Sark. I'll say this too. The fife rails. You take the string. Here's a pin. You take the string and you wrap it around this pin on the fife rail. And that's a string going up. Take your pin vise, put it in a drill, take the bottom off. These have different designs. Put it in a drill like this. Put it in a drill, and behind every pin drill a hole. A small hole. And what that does is, here's your hoe. You take your line, and you stick it in the hoe, and then you can tie it. Okay? And it will stay. And when you go straight to the pin and you don't have that hoe to tie it, it's just a whole lot more work, and you'll have to fight it. When you do drill all those holes behind the pins, make sure you have a pair of needle nose pliers, and you're holding it, and you're drilling those holes, and you're reinforcing. If you drill close to your pin. Here's the pin. Okay, here's the pin that you tie the rope to. You drill behind the pin, or maybe off to the side, and it's a very small hole. It's not a big hole, it's a little small hole. And then when you tie that, no one cares that you got a hole behind your pin. No one will care. Okay? All right. So you then have that hole there. So anyway, you want that fife rail to be really strong, because again, these lanyards will glue here and they will pull up. Okay? And remember, mono glue works better than super glue. So the back side of your fife rail needs to be pure plastic, no paint. Even though you paint it, but you leave a gap where there's no paint behind it. Then your lanyards, don't paint the bottom of them, and glue them with mono glue behind, and be generous. Let me tell you something. These lanyards here for these backstay lines, these black backstay lines, I have pulled them up many times. You don't want them to pull up. So you want them to be really well glued, and they're glued to the fife rail, and you want that fife rail glued in there extremely well. Excuse me. Okay, so the lanyards, we're going to talk about a mast here a little bit. This is a mast off of the USS Constitution, not a Cutty Sark. And how you want real nice rat lines is you string the lines, and then you take a needle and thread, and then you thread through, and they look beautiful. Okay? Now you can take the rat lines the kit provides. If it's an older kit, there's these nylon things. The thing is, they do not look as good. If you can make your own and you have the patience, make your own. But you take the needle and you run it through. And by the way, this is Walmart thread, 20,000th thick thread, button thread. And use black. And you take a needle and you just poke it through, and it takes some time, patience. And then you, I used to use super glue. I don't anymore. I would put super glue on this line, and then when the super glue dries, you take the fingernail clippers and you clip the excess off here with fingernail clippers. These fingernail clippers come in really handy. The ships now that Revell makes, these are all plastic. Now I'll tell you this, I don't like the plastic. It just doesn't look as good. But if you want to use plastic, go ahead and use it. This model here, the rat lines are plastic. And this turned out to be a beautiful model. And I went ahead and used plastic here. Now I want to talk about cells. If you do have a ship with cells, take the plastic cells and paint them white, flat white. Then, if you can airbrush the edges a tan color. Okay? And just do all the edges with tan. Alright? And I say tan because they look good. It looks more real. Looks like put some time into it. Here's a book. And look what it says. Rigging. Modeler's Guide to Rigging. It has wonderful illustrations. but it shows the cells in a tan color. Okay, and whoever this modeler is selling this book believes in weathering the cells, and you weather it with a brown. So there you go. So I follow this dude's advice. He's a wonderful person, gives wonderful advice, and sometimes your Revell's not clear on how to rig something. Go to another source, and it will help you rig everything correctly. Now let's talk about the base here. I got lucky with this base. This held candles. It had two holes here. There's the bottom of it. You see the screws, washers. It held candles. It held like 3 candles. It's a Christmas thing. I bought it at Goodwill. So this base looks wonderful. Okay. This base here is a door front. Okay, a door, you know, where you put your silverware and stuff in. It's a drawer front. And it's oak, and I didn't have to polyurethane it. I didn't have to stain it. And so you can go to, sometimes you get lucky. Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's, you can get these door fronts. Sometimes at a recycle center. You can see I drilled holes, and the ship is screwed on to this base with these 2 holes. Now notice I don't have the little wart here that comes with the model originally. Right here, here's a little wart. Okay, I just break that off. Okay, so you run the screws through the hull, and here's a ridge. You generously put glue, Tesser's glue, here on the model. You put the 2 halves together. You use clips, clothespins, whatever you can find. You hold it together, and then you take, I'm going to call it trees. See, here's some, this is not Cutty Sark parts, but you take this flashing here from a tree, and you remove the parts, and it's plastic. And as you have the 2 halves together, you take this, you make sure all the edges are off. Anyway, you stick it in that hole, and you glue it generously. One model, I took a model airplane wing, and I glued it in the bottom. And then, when I ran screws through the bottom, it screwed into that wing, that plastic wing. It was great. And you just use regular wood screws. Okay? And you can also glue wood in. You can take balsa wood. And again, I took balsa wood. Again, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, whatever. I think even Ace Hardware might have balsa wood. And I created a little cradle there, a chock. Both ships have this. And it looks great. And you shape it so it does cradle the ship, and then you paint it. And something about balsa, when you paint it, it's tougher. It's has more strength. And you can use hot glue and glue balsa right in the middle. Gorilla Glue, epoxy, whatever you want. You know, hot glue from a hot glue gun. And then when you run the screws up, it'll go through. And paint it, and that makes it stronger. And when you run the screw up through it, you run a screw up through it, put some Elmer's glue on the screw. And again, this is balsa. Put some Elmer's glue on the screw. The Elmer's glue will love the balsa, but it won't love your metal screw. Okay? So it will strengthen it. And the screw will go right in that balsa, and so forth. Or put a piece of plastic down here. But you need something for the screws to grip a hold of. And wood screws work just fine as long as they have something to hold on to. Okay, you can screw here and put it on thing and so forth. If you want to do that, you can do that instead of the hole. One thing about it, this is all glued together. You make sure it really is glued together before you run a screw up through the middle of the keel here. Okay, so I think that's about it for today. Hopefully I gave you some good tips. I still have more tips coming. There's certain parts of it that you should treat a certain way. And anyway, that's forthcoming. It'll be more about rigging as well. That's about it. And so, happy modeling. I wish you the best. That's about it.